Okay, so hey, there's Christina. All right, so this is the IPFS and Galleries, Libraries, Archives, and Museums call for May 23rd, 2017. And today's discussion will focus on Enno Myers talking about his work he did with Media Chain over the past year. And so let's dive right in. Or should we go do a round of hellos of everyone just introducing themselves? There's some people who are not on the previous call. So I'm Nat Zomwant. I work with Protocol Labs. Previously was the tech lead on the Hydra project. And I'm calling in from New York City. And across from me, with the same very shiny background, is...
I don't know if you'll be able to hear me okay. I'm Brendan O'Brien. I work on the data rescue project, sort of with archiving US government data with the Environmental Data and Governance Initiative.
Okay.
And then let's go from west to east. So Christina, and then Michelle, and then Edward, and then Enno.
Hey, I'm Christina Harlow. I work in repository operations, or data operations for repository specialists here at Stanford University. Sorry, I'm completely overbooked right now, so I'm just probably going to have to leave early again to go to a different meeting. But hooray, we're all here.
Good to see you, Christina. Michelle.
Hey, Michelle Lee, product and user research with Protocol Labs and IPFS.
Edward.
Edward Silverton. I'm the Universal Viewer lead developer. And I have a company called Holocene that I've just started. I'm concentrating on UV, 3D, and IPFS.
Okay. Hi, I'm Enno Meijers. I work at the National Library in the Netherlands. And actually work as information manager. That means that I'm somewhere between business and IT, moving around and try to help.
I know that feeling.
Okay. One of the things I'm quite involved in is a network in the Netherlands around Dutch digital heritage collections, and kind of we have a sort of mission from the ministry in order to make a better working network and make it easier for our citizens in the Netherlands to find all the wonderful things we have in our collection, and we're putting a lot of money in digitizing and adding metadata to it, but in the end it's very difficult to find the stuff we really have. So that's kind of a big project. In the end, it even will end up creating a separate organization for maintaining the network, which is somehow a sort of consortium from the National Library, National Archive, Sound and Vision Institute, but also some research institutes on cultural and historical data. So it's quite a thing going on. It actually started 2 years ago as a national strategy for digital heritage. And I'm involved actually in the part that focuses on making our information better usable. And in the end, we translated it to adopting linked data principles for a start, in order to, because this is really cross-domain, so it's library of its data coming from all kinds of different organizations, archives, museum, libraries, other institutions, and we think that adopting linked data principles will at least make the conditions in order to integrate data a lot easier. So that's one aspect of what we're doing. And the other one is trying not to build one big aggregator again, which is happening all over every time when people start thinking of these projects. We just aggregate the data and do smart things with it. And we're really trying to look into different ways of doing that. And that's actually why I was really interested in looking into IPFS and the distributed networking going on, in order to see if we can well, approach this problem from a different angle, actually. To, to be very short with my talk, we think it's a little premature to really start using this. So in the meantime, we're building a sort of registry that is not collecting all the data, but it's just pointing to the places where the data can be found. And since the data will be published in linked data, then we can support discovery environments in order to tell which kind of collections they should look into or collect for their purpose. So it's kind of I don't know exactly the right English word for it, but it's giving directions to the kind of interesting information that is for several service portals. I was looking into to IPFS to see if what IPFS could do with linked data, especially. And then at some point I ran across media chain, and I haven't been working on that for a whole year. It was only 3 months, but still, it's quite interesting to really have a dive into it. And I have I did this investigation as part of a blockchain project that is running from the Dutch government, and they're actually it's being looked at about 30 different use cases where the blockchain could make processes go smoother, to exchange easier information between different institutes and different parties, and that's quite interesting. And since we're we're aligned to the Ministry of Culture, somebody just asked if we wanted to dive in this blockchain pilot program going on. So that's when I raised my finger and shouted IPFS, and nobody really knew what I meant. But media chain was a nice, interesting combination between IPFS and blockchain technology, actually. So that was interesting to have a go with that. So what I'll show you on the screen is a report I made, just a couple of slides with the headlines of my project. So let's give it a try. Okay. Is it clear for everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it. I won't go into very much detail, but just shout if you want to know more. So this is basically our big goal: distributed network of digital heritage information, and we're still a long way from the end goal, actually. This is basically what I just told you, and we actually have about 1,500 different heritage institutions in our network, who at some point, of course, need to change their way of doing things. So that is a big challenge. So this is not a project that we're doing to finish the end of the year, but this will go on for the next 5 or 10 years, maybe. So well, the main goal is to improve the visibility of the information, but we actually run it in 3 programs. We have a visibility focus, a usability focus, and a sustainability focus. So we're also looking at shared services for digital preservation and things like that. So it's really a large program. This was the thing I came across at media chain, and this is actually a very old architecture layout. and I managed to find it back in the old logs. And it's interesting because it shows IPFS directly together with blockchain layer, and that actually triggered me to look into it and to decide to have a go with this. And I just wondered if it could play, if this kind of solutions could really help our problem with easier access to digital heritage information, and especially, of course, with the blockchain technology combined, could it also enhance the possibilities for provenance and right information and all the things you really want to keep a grip on. But of course, since we're working with the linked data principles, we really needed to take advantage of all the linked data properties. So I was wondering if that really could work. So what I ended up doing was set up a small network for myself using the DigitalOcean appliances, and MediaChain made a setup for DigitalOcean, and it worked quite well. Actually, it was very easy to get them running. And as you see at the right hand side, this is actually a new architecture layout, and IPFS has basically disappeared in this. That was I was a little bit alarmed when I saw this. Of course, they do use the lib P2P, so that is, of course, a basic. As you all know, it's a basic layer of the IPFS stack. So it still, if you look at the object, it still looks a lot like IPFS objects. Only there's a very big difference that it's not straightforward content addressable, and that is actually the big difference. It's set up as a distributed database, and you have to know the peer ID of the database or the peer ID of a certain namespace, and then you can collect or actually copy the data from one place to the other. So in practice, it just really looks like a database kind of thing, and it's not really a distributed network for storage. And I had some talks with I think it was especially with Dennis Nazarov from MediaChain, and they explained to me that it's all part of the roadmap. So they're all developing in small steps in order to. So many of the things I was looking for was somewhere on the roadmap, but it was just not in place at the time I was doing experiments with it. And I did try out the connection with they used. They had several options, and I used Blockstack in order to create an identity, and then I don't think it's very clear to see, but I actually could use my identity to put a watermark in the metadata of an object. So I think that's an interesting feature, that you can connect your basically your blockchain identity together with the data that's being stored. So for provenance, that is interesting. I didn't do any more things with this. To be honest, it took me a lot of time in order to set this up in the right way. It was quite a hassle actually, but it is at least interesting. So basically, yeah, there were only limited parts of the IPFS technology in there. So that was a little disappointing. What they actually do when they store it, they just put an extra layer of metadata on top of it. So the original content is just kept and stored as just one blob of data, and you can't really access the data from a higher level, actually. And the only option you have is copying the data from one part of the database to from one database to another database, or merging different databases into one. And like I said, you really needed to address the peer IDs of a namespace in order to find the data. So that's quite limited. And of course, directly access to the stored data is not possible. You have to go through the metadata on top of it and then collect an object. So it's probably could be expected for linked data. There's still not a lot of benefit from going in this direction. But if the distributed storage would have worked differently, it could have been more interesting for us. And I did find it interesting to see the block stack process working and see what you can do with that. So yeah, in general, I must say I spent about 3 months in my spare time looking at this, and as with all all these kind of projects going on, there's less functionality than suggested by the documentation, which is not a big surprise. And it's heavily under development, and actually that was quite difficult to keep up with it because the documentation was lagging the development and things like that. But I had excellent support through the Slack channel, so that was very nice. And in the meantime, I don't know, you probably all know, but the developers are being bought by Spotify now, and the source code is now it is open source. It's on GitHub, but they won't be doing any development, or at least not in the way they did it before. Which at least confirmed was a confirmation for me that we were onto something interesting there. So that was not too bad. So in general, well, it was an interesting investigation, and I must say that there was a really enthusiastic reception when we first talked to them, and they were really interested in our case. And of course, they had been looking into the cultural heritage domain as well. They already aggregated a lot of CC0 content lying around. So there was a focus in that area, but it was just not mature enough, at least for our goals of our project. So, and I think okay, well, it's probably some more of the same. Yeah, that's basically the things I already said. The linked data is, of course, an issue, and the real potential of IPFS wasn't really shown by the media chain check stack. So I think that was the last one. No. Well, we will be following these developments, and in the meantime, we built a more traditional way of getting our linked data setup working. And I must say, we're actually through the blockchain pilot, we're actually quite diving into this subject in order to see if we can make things in our library network work better. For instance, we have a network of 150 libraries with separate administrations, and we have a very complicated way of interlibrary loan system. That's a lot of hassle, and I really think we can do a lot in a lot of interesting things with the blockchain technology. Actually, we also looked at metadata management in order to, but I think that's not a very well fit for this area. But, so we're looking into different aspects. And I think, of course, the IPFS way of storing the archiving part, and I like to look at IPFS like a worldwide easy log system, actually. And I would really love to see people picking this up. So that's all the things I like to share with you. But
thank you, Enno. Does anyone have questions?
I was just going to say that I did try MediaChain myself, and I used MediaChain deploy, which is the DigitalOcean thing, and got a node running, but I didn't really know what to do with it. Once I had it, I was Sean Ellis actually at Princeton set one up as well, and we were planning on kind of trying to merge data, but it just never really happened. I was concerned as well about the lack of IPFS compatibility. I did ask them about that, and like you said, Dennis or Arkady said that that's on the roadmap, and it's when they implement IPLD that there'll be complete content addressability and consistency there. So I think what we got to before they were acquired by Spotify was their kind of pre-IPLD stage. And then when they got around to implementing that's when everything would be kind of queryable and etc. So sort of linked data. So you wouldn't have these like opaque blobs. So I think that's my interpretation of events. Anyway.
Yeah, I should probably, I'll add some information for people who for whom all these names are new, if you are watching this video, that MediaChain is a separate company from IPFS. So IPFS is produced by Protocol Labs. MediaChain is a separate company. And so MediaChain was acquired by Spotify, but Protocol Labs is still maintaining IPFS. So I should make sure to have that part be clear. And yeah, so Edward's points about IPLD the timing is sort of unfortunate because IPLD has been implemented now on IPFS for like 6 months now. And so it was not implemented at the time that Enno was doing this pilot, but it is there in IPFS now. So if MediaChain had continued on that trajectory, it would have been incorporated, but now they've been acquired, and they're probably not going to be working on the open source code anymore, to my knowledge. So I don't know what their plans are with the open source code, but that's the impression that I get.
Yeah. The other comment. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just about the source code, that at least what they told me is that it will be available around there, and that they probably will support it in one way or the other, but they won't be doing active development on it. That's actually what they said.
One other comment I think is obviously they're called MediaChain, and it's like blockchain sort of centric thing that they were making. And I think, well, I remember at a certain point they shifted their strategy to be more like I never got them to say it was a CRDT specifically, but it was sort of eventually consistent kind of model. So I'm kind of getting out of my area of expertise, but as I understood it, the blockchain model just wasn't scalable. It wasn't fast enough. So to mine each new block for all these transactions, because they're running all these big tests with lots of data, and it was just taking too long. And I think it was around about the time of the Internet Archive decentralized web event that they kind of pivoted a bit to be more about a CRDT-alike kind of model, where every node is responsible for itself. That's actually something that I'd love to understand. Like, what is the difference between a blockchain and the kind of CRDT model? What's the essential difference there? I've never really grokked that. So at that time, I started looking at OrbitDB, and Drew and I from Mirador, we're both obviously very interested in IPFS and all of this, and we're working with Matt and his team at the moment on a annotation demo that uses CRDTs on top of IPFS. But we started off using OrbitDB, and we had real trouble kind of setting it up because it was quite a big application. And the ideal thing we wanted was we just want a script tag we can drop in the page and it'll work, and we can code on top of that. So that's kind of where we are now. But that's the kind of path, just for what it's worth, the path I've taken. So I started with media chain as well, and then I kind of found my way to CRDTs a bit, and now I'm doing this new project.
I can answer Edward's question. Don't let me forget, I want to ask Enno for a little bit more of his observations on linked data and applicability to linked data, or how that's limited. But I'll jump in and answer Edward's question about the relationship between blockchains and CRDTs and how those models are different. Starting from what is a CRDT? It's a conflict-free replicated data type. And that's actually just a data format, right? So it's just a way of it's just a way that you format data so that if I receive different pieces of this data in any order, I would be able to clearly know how to order them and know that they're in the same order that everyone else would put them in. So regardless of what order they arrived, I know what order to put them in. And that's just so CRDTs are just a data structure that allow you to represent information so that you can do that kind of resolution efficiently. And that lets you do things like collaborative document editing, or like I edited this line at the same time that you edited this line. And then like, how do we let that all percolate across all of our machines so that all of us are seeing the same thing once the dust settles? That's what CRDTs let you do. But separately from that, there's how do we pass that information around? How do you pass those messages around? And that's where in the IIIF stuff that we're using, because we want it to be fast, we want it to be like a collaborative experience, that's where we're using PubSub. So you create a channel, and then people can publish messages to that channel, and anyone can subscribe to the channel. And when messages arrive on the channel, the subscribers see them all, and the content of those messages are using CRDTs. So the content arrives, and I'm able to sort it all out and see Edward made this annotation on the image, and then Michelle did this annotation, and then Edward edited his annotation, right? All that I can sort out and get it all in order. So in that case, we're not using a blockchain because we're using PubSub. So the method of passing the information around is using this publish to a channel and subscribe to that channel, and the machines are all communicating directly with each other. So by contrast, a blockchain, you can think of it as a log of transactions. So it's just a history, a log, an immutable log of what happened. And what makes it a blockchain is that it's using a consensus process, a consensus protocol, that every time you're adding new entries to that log, everyone adds their new set of entries to the log, and then everyone basically goes through a process of confirming that, yes, this is the new set of entries. And then you basically kind of seal it, and officially that is the new official current state of history. And then everyone has a bunch of new transactions. You all go around, you all confirm that that's the new set of transactions in the new order, and then you have a new current state for the log. And so that process is a lot slower, right? That process of going around and like confirming, okay, we all saw the same thing. It's all in this order. Yes, we all agree. Now that's the new state of the log. That process is much slower than just passing messages around. And so I think that's what MediaChain ran into, of in order for their system to be performant and have the information update on quickly and be moving around quickly, a blockchain was it was hard to make it fit into a blockchain. Whereas the strengths of a blockchain is you have this clarity of, so if you wanted to do things like, in this space, it would be like the official metadata, like the current corpus of metadata held by this library is this, and that the library can make that statement publicly, and everyone around can confirm, yes, that is the current state. Or you can do things like DNS, where I could write an entry saying the current state of all this stuff is this, and that gets passed around the whole network so that everyone participating in the blockchain has that new information of like the current state of this library's corpus is this. And so within that current state of the corpus, this item from within the corpus looks like X. And so you can pass those like messages around in a way that it propagates across the entire network, and everyone has it, and you have complete confidence that everyone has the same information. So it's that, in that kind of thing where you want to make official public statements, then it's really useful to use a blockchain. But if you're wanting to do things quickly and being official and in it like 100% everything in the same order at all times, then that's useful for a blockchain. But when you don't need that, when you just want to pass things around quickly, you want to use more like PubSub.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like I keep hearing people talking about storing data in the blockchain, but for me, well, with this very complex thing going on, I think it never be the right model to actually use the blockchain for storing data.
But one thing that actually is happening, that when people say they're storing on the blockchain, would be more, for example, if say like Department of Energy publishes a data set. If they publish the data set and put the data onto IPFS, and then they publish that hash on the blockchain and sign it, then you have this public record of the data, which is on IPFS and anyone could hold a copy, is like has this hash. It is cryptographically confirmed that this is what the data look like, and anyone can get it from IPFS, and the blockchain has that statement signed by this authoritative source, and that information, that just like which is actually a very small state, it's just like a string that's been cryptographically signed. That's the thing you write onto the blockchain, because then everyone gets a copy, and the time of that statement and who made that statement is clear for everyone. So that's super useful. But the actual storage of the data, it doesn't make sense to put that on the blockchain.
So there's a pattern I've been seeing in conversations with this group and elsewhere on the discussion forums, where like IPFS has a potential to really represent a different approach to making content distributed and permanently addressable and available. But the intermediate tools that are built on top of it that are sometimes necessary are rather immature or still in development. MediaChain is one. Sometimes people need a bit more of a DB. And so in some rare cases, you can, especially when you're doing just a little demonstration project on your own, you can use the protocol directly. But it seems like in a lot of other applications, such as NO's research, we need that middleware to be really robust in order to actually achieve the goals, the goals of those projects. And so I think that's something we might want to pay attention to, Matt, and the rest of the community here, is like both the development of IPFS itself, but also those applications that live on top of it, and also in our user documentation, which I know also referenced, not ours, but documentation in general. tends to jump really quickly into like, here's the command you type into the terminal, and less, you know, how do you evaluate all the different possibilities that you have to implement this technology?
I think one of the things with Media Chain that was attractive was it helps me actually find my stuff. Like, you know, currently when I add stuff to IPFS, I have to kind of remember a hash or, you know, something like that. And it's like, how do I actually discover this stuff? And that's why I kind of got pretty interested in annotations on top of IPFS, because like that could be a way to, you know, add metadata to it that makes things discoverable. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I know.
Yeah, I think you're both right, because you really lack a kind of a discovery layer on top of the IPFS storage, and I've been thinking about that as well in regard to linked data, because in order to get linked data working in IPFS, you really need to have some kind of support for addressing URIs that translate to stored data somewhere in IPFS. And at the moment, I don't see, apart from IPNS, but we talked a little bit about it last time, and I'm not quite sure if that is the most handsome way to build things like that. But just a nice and simple discovery layer that points you that can, yeah, that makes connection between annotation and a really stored blob. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Did you have any beyond that observation? Do you have any other observations about sort of the interface between linked data and this decentralized stuff and this IPFS stuff? Do you have any sort of speculations or observations about that?
Well, I'm still thinking about it, and I really couldn't learn a lot from the media chain case, because there was so little IPFS in there. So that's was kind of disappointing. What I did notice is that you were really forced to actually regard each resource, each linked data resource as a separate object. So you really needed to extract or to tear the linked data apart into the separate resources and store them really as one thing at a time in the media chain storage. So that is kind of well, it's kind of unusual if you work with linked data to approach it in that way. Although there is, if you really go resource-centric about it, then it would make sense to have the resource as the thing you really want to address all times. So in general, I'm still really thinking about it, and there was a discussion going on as well, I think, on the about IPLD and the relation with linked data. And my biggest gain is to realize that they're really separate things, and there is, I think, a big confusion going on. That and although the name is, of course, it's a logical name, and I see the logic behind it, but in the world I live in, with all people talking about linked data, it's a very confusing thing, actually. So that might be in the order of communication. That might be something to have a look at. But technically, I'm still, in the mist. I don't have a real clue how you would approach this, but I would really love to do experiments with it, actually.
Matt, is it Nicola who does the IPLD stuff? He's like quite heavily into that.
He did, yeah. Nicola did a lot of the basic work on designing IPLD like the spec, and then David and Jeremy and a number of other people did a lot of the implementation work of actually making it work and running code.
I'm just wondering if we could get him on this call, it might be great to get his, for it to give us the kind of 1,000-foot view of IPLD.
Yeah, I think so. This is just from my conversations with, I completely agree with Enno's observation. From my observations of talking with Nicola about this frequently, is that despite the fact that Nicola works in Tim Berners-Lee's office, like the locus of linked data, he doesn't really understand how people use linked data, like for particularly like how libraries are trying to use it, and that there's like this mismatch between how I see librarians and data managers in this sort of libraries and information space, how they're thinking about linked data and how you use it and how you structure it. There's a mismatch between that and how Nicola is thinking about the purpose of IPLD. And so Enno's observation is totally accurate. Like they're getting at the same space of you need to structure information in ways that it can be passed around and reused, but it's coming from very different sensibilities. And where like the sensibility of linked data is the core thing that makes linked data what it is, that like the fact that IPLD comes from a different sensibility just makes it in so many ways just fundamentally a different thing. And so that actually so we should put together this conversation and bring Nicola on. I also think we'll have to do some footwork in terms of unpacking why are we using linked data? What is actually useful about it? What is the conceptual model we're using here? And what is useful about that conceptual model versus what is just like implementation details? And I think that you sort of have to back out to that level in order to then engage with, is IPLD useful for achieving, is it useful, can it be reconciled with the conceptual model that we're using? Which that's where like conversations about IPNS come up. And then there's like, is it useful for solving the problems we're trying to solve? And in which ways is it beneficial or not beneficial? Like in order to actually get at the nut of those questions, you sort of have to back out to this slightly more abstract space. So that it might be, basically what I'm saying is it might be a difficult or slightly confusing conversation with Nicola, because he's coming from just like a very, very different perspective of, he's operating at it from a sort of data structures perspective, sort of like stripped down to computer science principles. And that really wasn't the genesis of linked data, right? Linked data was generated from web architecture principles, not core information structures, data structures principles. And so it's like, yeah, it's a difficult space to navigate, but it's worthwhile to navigate. So I think we should totally have that. We should do that call.
Yeah, and I think there's enormous potential if you do it right, actually. Because if you look at the way linked data is being used, it's still not the way that it really was meant, in my opinion. I mean, the dream of the semantic web where you could navigate through linked data, that is still only possible after aggregating the data in your huge triple store and bring all the relevant sets together, and then you can do very intelligent sparkling over it. But you really would like to do this just straight into the place where you store it. And I've been doing some research on it to see what's been published in this area, and I only found one article actually that describes this backlink problem. So you point to a resource, but the resource doesn't know that you're pointing to it. And I have the feeling that the way IPFS works and the real distributed approach in there, and it really could make it work bi-directional and solve this problem if you approach it in the right way. And well, I think if you could really do this, then you solve the federated querying hassle that is going on. I mean, this is really a big problem in making linked data work. So it's could actually be really of added value to see if this is possible.
Agreed. I think that'll be a great topic to follow up with as we're heading towards wrapping up our hour. We don't have a topic scheduled for the next call. The next call, if we go with the schedule we've been using, the next call is on the 4th of July, which is a holiday in the US. So should we just skip a month and just do a call on August, or should we try doing a tweak the day? I lean towards just wait until August. Of course, we can also discuss this on Discourse. It's just while we have everyone on the call, figure we can.
And in terms of the agenda, should we see if Nicola could come and do the IPLD overview?
Yeah, so the agenda items that have been kicked around are, we can do this call with Nicola, for the IPLD discussion with Nicola. We should do a session where we invite the people from Old Dominion University who are doing interplanetary wayback. It's web archiving on IPFS. Invite them to present about their work, which they're presenting at the, what's it called? It's like the International Web Archiving Conference is in London in mid-June. And so they're presenting their work at that. And so I think it would be great if we invite them to give basically that same presentation on this call and have some follow-up Q&A. And then there's also demoing, I guess we already did the IIIF stuff on the last session. So those are the two that come to mind then as upcoming things. I don't know that there's an urgency to do either of those in June instead of August.
I don't mind waiting to August. That's fine.
Oh, sorry. July instead of August. June? July.
Oh.
I don't think there's an urgency to do it on July 4th instead of waiting till August.
Yeah.
I'm with me.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right. Well then, so I don't quite see why it missed June. Oh, because we did 2 in May. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it is because of my holiday, actually.
Oh, right. Oh, that
so
was
this
why.
one is earlier than...
So this is the June call. It's just a little early. I get it.
Where will you be going on holiday, I know?
To Norway, actually.
That's
Norway,
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Hope the weather will be all right. It's
So the early in the summer.
All right. Well, then it sounds like we should call off the July meeting. I'll put this on Discourse so we can confirm for the people who are not on this call, but we're probably going to cancel the July meeting. And then August and September, we'll have some combination of the interplanetary wayback and a discussion about linked data and IPLD.
Speaking of Discourse, we're trying to improve it as we spin it up. So if anyone has comments or feedback on it, we're all ears.
Did you guys get a flood of notification emails this morning from Discourse? Are you nodding? Did you or did you not? This is I did a migration that may have flooded everyone.
I did have a notification. I must say, I probably deleted it straight away. But
but it was like one email, not 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just one. Yeah.
I pressed go on a thing that I should have been more circumspect about, and I think I did. I know that some people got spammed. I just don't know how many or who. But I think there were a lot of email notifications sent out last night when I pressed that button.
It might be in my spam filter, actually.
Now it's definitely spam. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I had a last remark. I made a comment about a reaction on the discuss, making a comment about a Raspberry Pi and IPFS. Do you know any people doing that?
Yeah, I know at least there's the there are people who are putting the Wikipedia mirrors onto Raspberry Pis and scattering them so that there are IPFS gateways that are not being run by anyone.
Okay.
So I know I know of at least one person who's doing that, but I think there are probably other people doing it.
Because I thought it was an interesting library project. If you have every library an IPFS node, and then make public network of that using Raspberry Pis. But
I love that idea. I love the idea of making it really, really easy for public libraries to run their own. Well, of course, then it's the storage. Like it's a Raspberry Pi attached to like a big old storage device.
yeah,
So you can just big, cheap RAID array that people can use to store their community's data, I think would be awesome. And there's like definite need for tooling there of how do you manage like basically the accessioning process and the deaccessioning process of what are we pinning on this library's node right now.
Yeah.
But I think we might get bumped off this call.